Okay. Okay. So I'm recording this computer. All right. Hello, welcome to the weekly content. This is last weekly content for this class, so that's nice. Um, so we're almost done. Next week is our last class. On next Thursday is the speeches. There's no weekly content because there's a midterm on Friday. So I'm Friday on Tuesday. And that's going to be open all day. So next Tuesday, midterm. I'm not midterm final. I'm out of it. I'm so out of it. It's that drive, man. The drive is brutal. Um, Coming home during rush hour. Oh, on the 710. So, anyways, yeah. So, and then we have a regular class on Thursday for you, and then anybody else watching this on the online content. Uh, yeah, everyone needs to show up on Thursday, this Thursday for our regular class, our last regular class. So, anyways, so the last online content, which I posted it over the weekend, we covered the persuasion speech, which is your last speech. If you haven't watched it yet, you need to watch it. I'm not going to cover it again, but persuasion speech, just to give you a quick um, rundown, and I'll do that at class two. Is any like social issue that there can be a change to it. It can't be more of the same. It can't be, if you're anti DUI, that's great, but can't do that speech because we already have a lot of DUI laws. Something that's an actual change. And that's the most important part, an actual change. Lots of social issues out there, gentrification, abortion, death penalty, um, lots of different pollution speeches. I had multiple AI speeches this semester because AI can go so many different ways. So lots of different things. No one can copy. No one can have the same topic, just like the last speech. And you can't. Your topic choice can't be related to any of your other speeches. So there we go. Okay, so let's get started. I So I was on this chapter last time. I covered this chapter. This slide. I didn't cover the whole chapter, so we're gonna finish this chapter and probably start on the next chapter. So that way we can finish these two chapters are very big and they're a lot on the test. So we're gonna start. Oops. Let's start with this chapter, chapter 23. So the previous slide, just FYI, the previous slide it was about persuasion and about being a complete persuader and so forth. Now we're going to look at some theories and how this affects us as public speakers and persuasion in general. So hint on all these terms. All these terms can be on the test. So hint on all these terms. All right. So chapter 23 covers a lot of theories. The very first one, super important, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, and that is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is anytime you hear information, it's very important. Anytime you hear information that goes against your attitude, beliefs, values, or your behavior, you feel discomfort and you feel physical, psychological discomfort. That's what cognitive dissonance is. I keep hearing I keep hearing it being thrown around now, but it is very true. It is anytime anybody feels discomfort on hearing something they don't want to hear. Essentially, that's what it is. You get bad news. The best and easiest example of this is when someone gets dumped, when someone's relationship ends and they can't handle the information and they feel the pain inside. But this is becoming very, very problematic in our society because unfortunately now, especially because of the internet and social media, usually when you hear information you don't like, you deal with it, right? You give someone breaks up with you, you move on, or you try to figure things out. If you find out that your job is being shut down, you go try looking for another job. And if you find out that your president didn't win the re-election or that the person that you believe in is false, usually, like with Nixon, people learn from it or move on or try, whatever. Not anymore. Because now, because of the internet, there's places on the internet that people can go to and they're like, come on board. We're upset too. We're not going to be healthy and handle the situation. We're going to just live in conspiracy land and so forth. The best example of this is men who get broken, who can't find dates or get broken up. There's a whole community out there now for men who, are inside are hurting. And so they go out and it's called the incel movement. And it's, oh, so cognitive dissonance is very important. We're going to discuss later how to handle it in your speech, but it's super important, not just for this class and not for the final, but in everyday life. This is probably one of our weakest points in our society right now is people not handling bad news or news they don't want to hear. So it's there's manipulation. There's just so much stuff. And by the way, you're going to hear me mention Trump supporters a lot during this time because of some of that stuff. And cognitive dissonance in the 2020 election is a great example of this. And by the way, this is happening somewhere on the left right now because Elon Musk just recently said that it came out. One of his girlfriends said that he bragged about using his satellites to manipulate the election before the election, and so people are jumping on those words. And my thing I told people who are doing that is, yeah, but he might just be BSing to try to get favor with this person to sound powerful. You have to take into account that maybe, just maybe, this country didn't vote the way you thought it should. And don't just jump on the next thing. So, yeah, so it's a huge problem in our society. Uh, self-actualization. Self-actualization is we're going to talk about a different theory later. Self-actualization is not on the test, but it's just your ideal sense of yourself. That's all it is. Your dream goals, your dream job, your dream car, your dream spouse, or whatever. Fear appeal. Fear appeal, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's on the test. It's anytime you use negative motivation, negative thoughts, and so forth to persuade people. It is a viable form of persuasion as long as you are ethical. Remember, I said how important ethical is. Ethics is in public speaking. Well, this is a great example of it. Fear appeal is super important because if you use it correctly, it is very, it works very well. The best example of this is health notices. During COVID, like when COVID started, I believe they didn't message correctly. I think their messaging was bad and it was flawed, but they were right to warn people you need to do these precautions because you can die, and which was true. They were very accurate and so forth. The way they handled it was not the best messaging, but that's something you do when you have that kind of thing. Like right now in Orange County, there's a massive gas leak and they're evacuating people, and so they're telling people don't go in this area because of the things in the air. So it's very very ethical. If you're ethical, you can use it, but obviously if you're unethical, this is where the problem starts. And we're going to get into that more later, but you can understand scaring people, using things like crime to scare people about other cultures, other groups, stuff like that. This is where the ethics come in. Social judgment theory. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Social judgment theory is essentially wrapped with the idea of what people think of you socially and how, when it comes to some kind of persuasion, whether or not you commit, reject, or you stay uncommitted. Those are the only three options in social judgment theory, and your social placing usually is strongly considered. Like, where is everyone else is going into it, right? It's the idea of, hey, everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing it. Or everyone's on board with us. This is the popular movement. And again, I'm going to tell you later how to do it ethically, because people are unethical when they do it. A good example of this is the current president when he says all the smart people know that the election was rigged. He's implying that if you don't believe him, that you're not smart. Or he says everybody's saying this. That's a thing that politicians use all the time. Everyone's saying this, or everyone's doing this. So if you're unethical, and there's a way to prove, by the way, social judgment is on your side. Again, either if you're committing, rejecting, or staying uncommitted. FYI, the last presidential election, the biggest group of voters are uncommitted. That's the biggest group. The third option. Propositions. Propositions are anytime it's a statement that anytime you're trying to persuade somebody you're setting up a proposition, right? It's a statement for trying to get to persuade somebody. Anytime you persuade someone, it's a proposition. So when you're asking someone out on a date, it sounds funny, you're propositioning them, but not in that way. Not that way. But you're trying to change their mind and change their behavior. So let me give you an example. Proposition of fact. Again, hint on all these. Hint on the propositions. Proposition of fact is anytime you're trying to say something is true or false. True or false. So this is not about the conspiracy folks, because conspiracy folks are, they get into the anti-vaxxers, the climate change deniers, the election hoax people. This is also a lot of times it's whether or not something is occurring, right? Right now we have a mayor's race in Los Angeles, and recently one of them said that he said all the homeless that are out there, it's all drugs, it's all drug related, and yeah, that's that if that statement was considered a proposition of fact, that would be a false statement. There's lots of other reasons as well: homelessness, housing crisis, all that stuff. Proposition of value. Proposition of value. Now you're talking about right or wrong, right? Good or bad. Remember when we learned about attitude, beliefs, and value, and we said more weight is on it? That's where the debates are. So this is also in that realm, though, because here's the thing I need you to know about this: proposition of fact and proposition of value are trying to change someone's mind. Remember earlier I said persuasion is changing someone's mind or behavior. A proposition of fact or proposition of value is changing someone's mind. So your speech, the first part, you're trying to convince people it's a problem. What you're talking about is a problem, right? And so convincing someone it's an important problem is trying to change your mind because they might not think it's important. The example I always use is has anyone ever heard, you can mention this in the chat, or you can say, or you can unmute, maybe I've already mentioned it in class. Have anyone ever heard of the term trap water? Relatively new term. Anyone?
Yes.
Do you know what it pertains to, or do you want me to define it?
About the bottled water that
Where did
is
you
thrown like the waste of water, I think.
where did you hear that? Did I tell you, or where did you hear that from?
I have the same bad habit or good habit of drinking all the water and squishing my water bottles.
Yep, yeah. Some time ago there was an article. Like I think I know everything about current events, and somebody was talking about the crisis of trapped water, and I'm like, what? So I didn't even know there was a term for it. But this is like if you have a water bottle and you throw it away and there's still water in it, because especially if it's in plastic like this, it is not going to biodegrade. That water is now trapped forever for as long as that plastic bottle stays together. And they said when you add in all the plastic bottles and containers that are thrown away every year, and it's not just water bottles, any kind of liquid is taking water out of the system and so forth. And so I was like, wow, geez. And when I read that, I was like, that's important, but also at the same time, we have more important stuff to worry about. Like this is oh yeah, this is a big issue, but this is an issue, but there's other things. But
Right. That makes,
anyways,
yeah, I know it's a big, it's just not a big rabbit hole. That's what I say.
yeah, it's like okay, this is like okay, this is this much water here, but we're losing how much water here and there. So, anyways, so I just found it fascinating that they're like, oh, it's a big issue. But see, if someone was doing a speech though, a trap water speech and how to fix that,
Right. Right.
this 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 speech, their first part of the speech, the main point one and main point two, they would have to convince people that it's a problem. So proposition of fact and value is about changing minds. Proposition of policy is about changing behavior. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Proposition of policy is about changing behavior. Um, I have the board. The what I mean by that is so in that video, if you watch it or not, the one over the weekend, I said that your speech is going to be this problem, problem, solution, right? This part up here, by the way, the first problem is the overall problem. The second problem is the connecting or causing problem. I like to say connecting problem because it connects to your solution. So, like, if you're doing the Mexican cartel, which is a banned speech, by the way, Mexican cartels is a banned speech. But, anyways, if I was doing a speech on Mexican cartels, I would talk about all the crimes the Mexican cartels, the overall problem with the Mexican cartels. And then I would talk about here the lands that the cartels are in that they don't get they're free to roam in Mexico because the government won't go in them. So the solution: send special forces in. Obviously, I don't actually support that idea, but that's a setup right there. That's overall problem, connecting problem, solution. Even though you're changing minds up here, explaining to people why this is a problem and we need to fix it, your speech is still a proposition of policy, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Because the fact of the matter is, the end, the last part of the speech is, this is how we fix it. This is how we need to change. All right. So anytime you're trying to change behavior, even if you're changing minds to get there, it's still proposition of policy. So whenever you ask someone out on a date and you're trying to convince them to go out with you, if they yes or no, it's a proposition of policy. Any questions on the terms?
No,
You can unmute or you can type
no,
in the
sir.
chat. Hmm? No question? Okay.
No.
All right. So we'll move on. So okay, we started. All right. So cognitive dissonance, like I said, is when you feel that discomfort. This is very important. This is definitely going to be on the test. It's when you hear something you don't like it goes against your attitude, beliefs, or values, or it goes against your behavior. You feel that discomfort inside. It could be psychological, where you feel anger. It could be physical, where you feel discomfort in your stomach. But this is a real thing. This happens all the time. I'm not going to ask anybody what the latest bad news was, but when's the last time you heard something that you didn't like, but nothing too revealing, like something like information wise, like what was it? Um, oh, um, when the reviews were coming out from the Mandalorian and Roku, I was not happy with the fact that it sounded like a extended episode of the series and not like a real epic movie. See, that's discomfort. Like, oh, right. Even though it's pretty innocent and basic, it did like, oh, great, stupid Star Wars movies. Anybody felt like that about something innocent? Nope. All right, but you get the gist, right? But put it on the more epic level, it can get really out there, right? People can get really riled up when they hear stuff they don't like. So how do you go against that? How do you, especially if you're doing a speech where you're trying to convince somebody of a problem, and hearing that problem will make them feel discomfort or they don't want to talk about it. The best way your book talks about this, and I totally agree, and I even expand on it more, is go after their self-interest, right? Go after their self-interest. Um, uh, there are things that people don't want to hear. Like, for example, people don't like to hear me say this, but we're going to have to eventually raise taxes to go after our national debt. It's going to be a problem. We're going to lose credit rating soon. It's a huge issue, right? No one wants to hear you. We got to raise taxes or anything like that. So when you do something like that, as U.S. citizens, as Americans, there's a sense of patriotism. I'm personally am not that type of person because I worked around politicians and fake patriotism with them. But but the fact of the matter is, we're still that type of country. So when I if I was going to discuss this, I would go after the self interest and talk about how older generations paid higher tax rates, that we paid higher taxes during World War II and other times where this country was in crisis, or that we had to step up or something like that. Go after go after the American ego in a way. That's how I would go after if I was going to say something, that people don't want to hear. Like, we got to look at raising taxes. See, that's how you do it. You go after self interest. One of the things I did very well in politics was I always used the language of my opposition. So if I know that people are going to oppose something, I go after, what they usually talk about. So when I went to debates and I had to give speeches in hostile territory, I would always talk about, because I'm on the left, I would talk about national security and economic issues instead of social, the greater good arguments that the left tend. The left is very bad at messaging. So going after self-interest is the best way to go. When you know you're going to give people discomfort, go after their self-interest, make them feel better. Like, oh, but I'm, I care about our national security, right? Or I care about economic stability. The example of this, another example of this is the minimum wage speech. And there's people who are like, well, that will make it hard on a small business. I always tell people with the minimum wage speech to always mention the more money you put into the middle class and the working poor, the more money that comes out of them, because they usually spend it right away into the local small businesses. So that's how you work. You go after their self-interest, right? That's the way you go after it. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're going to cover that in a second. That's a whole slide by itself. Fear and negative thoughts. Fear and negative thoughts. So when you use fear pill, you should always be ethical. You should always be ethical because you're messing with negative thoughts. Negative thoughts is where people like to usually get radicalized, right? When they usually go radicalized, like you scare people, or you get people believing in the boogeyman in a way, and the boogeyman is some opposition somewhere else. It's a thing that happens over and over again, and so it's really bad. And a good example of this is I grew up around the undocumented community. I grew up around immigrants in Fresno, California, and there's no group I've never felt safer around than the undocumented, by far. A group of people that are there to work in the fields and the farms and other places. They don't want to jeopardize that, so they don't do things like crime and so forth. Studies have shown that the undocumented and recent immigrants have the lowest percentage of crime, right? Justice Department confirms that. Yet you hear our politicians make it sound like they're going to come out of the woodwork. Like, I got to watch my back because they're going to come through this door. By the way, that's usually blocked off. They're going to come through this door and attack me. the way they talk about it, right? They always bring up the crimes of these individuals. But the one thing that all those individuals they have in common, you know, the ones I'm talking about, the man that killed that one woman and this other person that killed another woman and so forth. The one thing that they all had in common, the crimes that they use as sensational ones, they're all men. They're all men. And I'm sure you would find a bunch of other crimes that are just similar to that done by men. Right? But again, they're using unethical means to have negative thoughts associated with the group. And how well does this work? A couple years ago, they asked people in the Midwest. We're talking Michigan, Minnesota area. Michigan. My mom's from the Midwest. We're big Michigan fans. Anyways, but they asked people in the Midwest about south of the border, and they asked an open-ended question. What do you fear about people who cross the border? And more than one person, when they could use whatever words they wanted, more than one person said they were afraid someone would cross the border to come all the way up to where they live and take their vacation homes and not give them back. They were afraid someone was going to cross the border at Mexico to come all the way up to take their ice shack in Minnesota, or their little place on the. And it was just so sensational. So many of these people answer that, like, obviously some fear mongering has occurred where people, did they have examples of that? No, but this was somehow put in people's heads because people were using fear appeal. It's the example of they use against transgender people, and they say right now in U.S. schools are having to put kitty litter boxes in bathrooms because people identify as a furry. That's fake. There's no examples of that. But more than one politician has said that out loud. Did anyone ever hear that? A politician say that? No, it started on the internet. Same thing with the vacation home thing. It all started on the internet. So you got to be ethical. You got to be ethical if you ever use, because negative thoughts and again, that's how people get radicalized. It's very dangerous. Remember, hint hint nudge nudge. Persuasion is the most dangerous form of speech. I'm going to teach you. Lastly, audience and social judgment. Social judgment, again, it's like, hey, everybody's committing, everyone's not committing, most people aren't committed. Does anyone have a guess on how you would prove that in a speech? There is a way to prove that people support and don't support. So you're not just going up there going, everybody knows. You're not doing that. There's actual proof. Does anyone know how to do that? It's a thing that you hear about in the news. There's a lot of it going around right now because of the elections.
Like commercials?
No, not commercials. It's something that people talk about.
Voting?
Voting, no, but it's something the press reports about. Like, this is the latest blank
about propaganda.
No, it does start with a P. It's the latest blank that shows who's popular in the race.
Like the poll?
There you go. You got it. The polls. Yes, that is correct. So there are polls about everything out there. There are studies, like we did a study where we proved that people get so attached to their cell phones that they feel more pain losing a cell phone than losing a grandparent. We did that by asking questions in a survey. And so there are polls about everything out there. You just do the right kind of research and you'll find polls to legitimate polls, right? If you don't find a poll that shows that people, if you're trying to say something is very popular, yet there's no polls, it might not be popular at all. So polls are a great way to prove whatever social judgment you're trying to say. So if everyone's like, right now, the vast majority of Americans are against the war with Iran, right? I think it's like 70-30, something like that, and so forth. So, so there are polls out there that show if you want to claim that a lot of people are for something or a lot of people are against something or uncommitted. What was it? I think more people are more committed on the mayor's race, the LA mayor's race. But if you looked at it a couple months ago, there was a lot. I think the biggest group was uncommitted. So yeah, there's ways to show this stuff. Lastly, propositions. Propositions, like I said, we already covered it. But anytime you're trying to change someone's mind, it's either a proposition of fact or value. Anytime you're trying to change their behavior, it's always proposition of policy. Any questions on anything I talked about on this slide? Artifacts, can I bring up? Oh, have you guys seen the Lego version of me yet? No.
Show us.
I'm getting it. I'm getting it. It's on my Instagram. But I made it myself. My Lego version. Here it is. Here it is. Ooh. I think I got find a new hairpiece, but still.
Oh, that's a stand-up comedy guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's cool.
As a recreation of the Seinfeld wall from the TV show. Anyways, so all right, that's a nice little break in the thing. Oh, this is another thing. I did this for the. I had to do a video for the high school class, the dual enrollment class. Let me all the fun things to do on Zoom. All right. So let's move on. We're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Has anyone ever seen this slide, this pyramid before? Anybody?
No, I've seen when you know how you label worker zone, educated, and stuff like that. But something similar, yes.
Maybe when I did the abstract, the concrete one.
I think so.
Yeah, and then there was other ones too, like ethos, logos, pathos. But this one right here, this one, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and your book uses it, and I use it. You'll probably see it in psychology, in maybe a philosophy or English class. Social science uses it, but it essentially explains what people care about the most, right? Where the very bottom of it is the most basic needs. Excuse me, the most basic needs. And then it goes up, and the higher up you go up, the smaller the pyramid, because this is the stuff that people think of the least when it comes to persuasion. This is like the fundamentals at the very bottom. This is what people think about the most. And then only when you go up does it get less and less. Advertisers use this all the time. So when we go over it, you're gonna see that yourself with how we talk about it. Okay. So let's look at that. All right. So let's go over it real quick. Well, quick as you can. And so you might want to unmute, or you can do it in the chat. The first one, physiological needs. The best way to remember this one is that you are. Remember, hold on. Remember, I keep saying self-interest. You know, the best way to go after self-interest. This is the best example. So when it comes to the first one, physiological needs, this is the one that people think of the most. And that's physical needs, the most basic physical needs. Now, if you're thinking of a cave person, starting off in our society, what do they need the most to every day? A cave person. What does a cave person need to survive?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the what. I'm sorry.
What is like a cave person, caveman, cave woman? What do they need to survive? Like the most basic needs.
Food.
Water.
Food, water. Yeah. People sometimes say shelter, but a lot of times it's just a place to crash. Because under a tree would be just fine. You don't need a cave. Sometimes caves are dangerous because they might have animals or some caves have um, like too much methane in it and stuff like that. So we're talking like the basic food, water, drink, and not even like clothes, just something to cover, right? We're talking that basic kind of thing. Air, like I said, the cave can't be, full of gases, so they need air to breathe. Like this is like the most basic stuff. And when you think about people in our society, you might, and I hate that I'm not equating the two, but it's on the same level as what we see every day with the homeless out there, right? I bet you've all seen homeless on the street. They're not under shelter. There was a guy, I live in Alhambra. There was a guy who, for like over a year, well over a year, he would always sleep on the same spot on the street behind the coals. And so he was on a public sidewalk. So he didn't need shelter or whatever. He was always in this one place. But and then like, just clothes for covering, food, drink, water, stuff like that. Just the basics. Right? This is the most, like I said, the physical stuff to survive. And we're not even talking money yet, unless that money is buying basic food. Is there any ads that you've seen that have pretty much focused on just the basic needs to survive? Or is this one ad in particular that goes after the desire to eat? Anything you guys can think of?
I don't. I haven't seen anything lately. Not in.
Here, I'll jog your memory. You can see what I'm talking about. Has anyone seen the Snickers ads? Hungry? Get a Snickers.
Oh,
You've seen those? That
yeah.
that's advertising use the basic physical needs. Like, oh, you hungry? Go get a Snickers. That's advertisers doing that. All right. So yeah, so that's advertisers will do that as well. Feed your family, just the basic, eating stuff. Safety needs is the next level. Safety needs is what we talked about, but a little more. Now you can include money in the discussion, but instead of just food, what kind of food do you think they need now for safety needs to meet the safety needs? What's the next level after basic food to survive? What's the next level? Any guesses? We're talking like food to just fill up. We're talking maybe healthy food, but we're just talking food to fill up here. We're talking clothes. Now we're actually talking clothes. What kind of clothes do you need? Not just covering, but clothes that make you feel what? Not just safe, but feel what? Imagine people in LA when it's below 70 degrees. What do they feel in LA when it's below 70 degrees? Heck, before below 80. What?
Like a fur jacket.
Yeah, they need to feel warm. So yeah, safety needs. Now you're talking about warmth or the appropriate clothing for the weather. Now we're talking shelter and safety needs. Because when you're before this, it's just a place to crash and so forth. Now we're talking we need a door with the lock. Has anyone ever seen a homeless encampment with the door on it?
I see them all the time.
Yeah, I'm talking
Especially watch.
like a door because there is
Yeah, they built tents and they put an actual door on it with a doorknob.
Yeah, doorknob. Yeah, there was this one. I was at Hawkins High School for 2 months, and when I would go this one certain way, there was on the sidewalk, and there was a front door to it. And so
Yeah.
now we're talking that feeling safe, being able to close your belongings. Now we're talking not just water, but maybe stuff that's a little healthier. We're talking a stick to protect yourself, that kind of safety as well. This is the next level, the next step. and the stuff that we previously, and like I said, money is a part of it as well. Let's see what else: food, drink, water, shelter, stuff like that. Feeling warm. Um, Anyone seen any advertising that they advertise about safety? Anything that pops in your mind?
Um, I see a lot of OSHA, like in the because I'm in the construction field.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of the, and I've seen accidents happening. I think 2 years ago,
Mm.
one of my friend's dad, he had an accident where a brick fell on top of his head,
Yeah.
and he didn't have his hard hat, so he immediately passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's awful.
Yeah, it's
I learned a
unfortunate.
lot about that stuff because of my firefighting background, and also my dad was in construction.
Yeah,
My dad was a carpenter. Yeah, that's sorry to hear that.
it's,
Um, I'll give you an example of the safety ad. Has anyone ever seen the Ring commercials, Ring camera commercials? Where
Yes, I was just about to say that too, like the ADT
Yeah,
commercials.
AVT, that's the other one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Ring commercials, they'll even show pretend, the criminals trying to break in. And so that's safety needs right there, where you want to feel safe and secure in either your clothes, where you're drinking and eating, or in this case, shelter. You want a door on it instead of just a cave. Social needs. Now we're talking about it's the next level. It's not as important as the other two, but it's still up there in importance. Now we're talking, and by the way, when it comes to advertisers, they tend to focus on this one and the next one a lot. Social needs. What do you need when it comes to your clothing now? When it comes to social, now it's not just for what is needed for the situation to feel safe. Now it's out there in our society. What do you need for your clothes now? Any guesses? You need clothes that match, right? You need clothes that match. You don't want to wear anything too outlandish or anything that looks like people would reject it. You want that kind of basic, right? You don't want to look raggedy and you don't want to look all messed up and so forth. So you want things that match, that look decent. Food and drink. Now we're talking. Where do you guys go eat with your friends or family a lot? Give me some places. Where do we go?
Black Bear Diner.
Black Bear. Where is there a Black Bear Diner in the Watts area?
No, there's not. There's one in Torrance off of Hawthorne and
Oh, Torrance. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Where else? What fast food places do we go to?
In and Out.
Yeah. If you have the time, the long way. So social, like when it comes to food, it's not just food for you to fill up, but it's also socially approved food, like when you go out to eat, or you're trying something someone recommends to you, or stuff like that. Your clothing match, you're doing that. Now we're talking safety needs when it comes to money. You made money to keep you safe. Now you're talking money to pay for what your social needs. What do we all need in our society nowadays? Everyone must have this thing. I'm holding it in my hand, but I don't have it on camera yet.
A cell phone and a flash.
Phone.
There you go. Cell phone. We all need this now. There was politicians who would say poor people with cell phones are not poor, even smartphones. But here's the thing: this is required now in our society. I would say years ago they used to say the same thing about televisions, but in the 80s and the 90s, if you wanted the latest news, emergency events or whatever, you would get you would have to have a TV. I knew somebody, a family, they never watched TV. TV was not allowed, but they had a television, a small one off to the side in case some big event happened. So yeah, social needs are playing a factor into your decision making as well. Let's see what else. Yeah, clothing, food, drink. They get involved. Oh, what do we all need in LA to survive?
Vehicle.
Vehicle, yeah, yeah. You can actually now. I don't think you could have done this before. It was very, very hard, but you could use to be able to take the metro. You can take the metro now. There's rail system and so forth, and there are people who do that. But yeah, this is not San Francisco. This is not New York. You need to pretty much have a vehicle in LA because it's socially like required, right? So social needs is like what society pressures are taking in. What commercials do we see that has social pressure to them? Like, oh, you need to have this.
Apple.
Oh, the Apple products.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. That's a good one because they're like, oh, this is the latest thing, right?
Right.
And it's like I gotta have the latest thing. What else? Anybody else? That plays a part more also in the next one. But anything else where they're like everyone has it or this is the thing that people are using. I would say food ads where they're like, come out and have our experience. Like I think the Black Bear Diner probably has an ad like that. Or who else?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other ones. Oh, Applebee ads. Like eating good in the neighborhood, I think is their thing. Right?
Yep.
So that's the thing. Next one is esteem. Esteem is goes after things that make you feel better about yourself, right? Social needs is like what the social society wants at the time and what you feel a part of our society. Esteem now is more about you. It makes you feel better. Now the clothing is not just matches, but now it's brands, right? We're talking the sneakerhead people, people that are the collectors as well. We're talking you don't just have a car, but you have a car that works well and looks good. Um, Preferably a Mini Cooper that looks cool like mine. Now, anyways, you have like all this stuff, right? You have uh, um, what else goes after the scene?
Like
Oh,
makeup.
yeah, makeup. Oh, yeah, makeup is another one. A food is still another part of this. Now it's not just. Now we're talking. Hey, you don't take out your partner to Taco Bell. You got to take them out to a nice restaurant, right?
Steak.
Yeah, there's the steak. Yeah, the steak. Ruth Chris, stuff like that. Now we're talking. Oh, I got to get the sporty car. I got to get this stuff. Nice clothes, the nice stuff. It's the big screen TV. It's the nice computer. It's the Apple products. You can get a cheap phone. I'm not saying who owns a cheap phone. This guy. But you have to have a nicer. You have to have a nicer stuff. So that is the esteem needs, right? It's the social pressure, but the pressure on yourself as well. What kind of ads go after the esteem, your self-esteem?
Like particular brands, like I don't know, Avon for the makeup. I think.
Yes, yes.
Or
Avon, your clothing ads go after it a lot. I would say the ad that really does it is the Axe body spray. Um, you guys want to see my impression of a middle schooler with Axe body spray? You guys want to see it?
shoot away, shoot away, Professor.
Here's my impression of a middle schooler with Axe body spray. Here we go. Hold on, this one's out. Let me try another one. Those kids will put tons of it on because they see these ads where these very chiseled bodies are playing basketball or whatever. Hey, let me ask you a question though. So Axe body spray likes to show off, and it's Axe body spray is for men, but they tend to show off really hunky men bodies playing sports and so forth. Who is it really targeting those ads?
For fit men.
No,
They need
there's
to put
somebody
on
else.
myself.
There's somebody else who's Axe body spray target than the men.
Fit women.
Yes, women. Women see those ads and they associate that brand with men that look like that, and especially the younger ones. They're the you know they'll studies have shown that they'll just go and go, hey, you should try this. So they help the word of mouth because they say, oh, hey. So this is the esteem. The very last one is self-actualization. Self-actualization is the one where it's your dream situation, your dream job, and so forth. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going for it. It just means this is something that you would gravitate towards, right? You would gravitate towards. Maybe it's out of the picture. Like at one point in my life when I was in politics, I was like, maybe I'll get elected governor or president someday. You know, back when I was very young and stupid. But at the same time, I've always found myself to be one of these people when I talk about policy, if I was in charge type perspective. So self-actualization is your ideal sense of yourself, and then you aim for it, even though you might not get it. So it's your dream idea and so forth. Anyone have a dream car? Dream car? Anybody?
Yep, 1967. No, 1963 split window Corvette.
There you go. That's very specific. Have you seen one of them recently?
The last one I seen was about 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Right at an auto show?
Yeah, Barrett Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah. So I parked cars, tons of fancy cars when I was doing valet work a long time ago. Lamborghinis, Ferraris. The only one I ever cared about was Aston Martin. Why? Because I grew up with James Bond. So, anyone have a dream house or dream vacation they had they would wish they could do someday?
I actually want to build my house from the ground up one day.
My dad built the first two houses I lived in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, don't get addicted to gambling. Anyways,
I won't.
don't get addicted to gambling. All right. Anybody else? Any other dream scenarios? You might not get, but it would be idea if it's possible. So self-actualization, we see these in ads all the time, especially when they use the celebrities. Like, oh my gosh, here's someone I would want to go out with, or I want to be like that, or something. Perfume ads, cologne ads, they'll have the celebrities that tend to be what they want. Like there was a cologne ad that had Lenny Kravitz. I still think Lenny Kravitz is one of the coolest human beings I've ever existed in, ever. And I don't care how old he gets, he's the man. And so I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it because that's the man right there. So yeah, so it's the idea sense of yourself, and so advertisers do that all the time. There's one thing I did not mention throughout this whole thing that touches upon all these, and advertisers use it all the time. Does anyone want to guess what it is? If you don't want to guess it, you don't want to say it out loud, and you want to write it in the chat, you can do that, and I'll read it out loud. Anyone want to guess what it is? Touches on all these things, and advertisers go after it all the time.
I think they go after consumers.
Nope, no, I'm talking a subject. A subject. I purposely don't mention it in this when I do this. Advertisers go after it all the time. It's a famous saying advertisers say. Any guesses? All right, I'll just say it. One of the famous lines advertisers use is sex sells. Finding a mate. Remember the very first persuasion. Finding a mate. Ask the basic persuasion, asking someone out on a date. Advertisers use sex all the time, and it also hits all the needs. Physical needs, number one, obviously, we don't want to get into that, but it's also the need to have kids, a very physical need, because especially in older time, those kids are going to be taking care of you when you're older. You need them for the labor that they bring as well. So physical needs, having kids is a very basic component of human existence, a very physical need. Safety needs. When you have a partner, they do what you cannot do. You're the hunter, they're the gatherer. They're the ones that hold the stick. They're the ones that make sure you're safe for everything else, right? This is the safety need. To feel safe in your home, you have somebody with you, right? Social needs. Does anyone come from a family or a culture that there's pressure, or you have friends that pressure in either in your and sometime in your life that you had to be in a relationship? Anybody? I'm not talking now, it could have been in the past. It's a very basic component of our society where it's like you have to be in a relationship. Advertisers hint on this all the time. You know, when you see the ads for jewelry and you're like, oh, you found someone to be with, and then give them a kiss from Kate or whatever, that kind of stuff. But there's a social pressure to it. I could talk about cultures. I didn't grow up directly with them, but I grew up in an area where we had a very large Armenian population. And does anyone have any history or connection with the Armenian community for class?
No.
No. Well, Armenians and other cultures like this too have a big you gotta marry another Armenian. And it was a big thing in that culture. And it is still a big thing. I just did an Armenian show. I saw my friend who's an Armenian comedian, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to?" I said, "I have stories. I wish I could do that." He goes, "Do you want a spot?" And I did the Armenian show. I did the Armenian show for 5 minutes. But one of my jokes was the fact that that's a big thing in the community and culture. So there's like social pressure from family members, like, "I want a grandkid." No one had that pressure. No one had that pressure from a parent. Hey, where's the grandkids? Right? I'm lucky. I'm the youngest. There's plenty of grandkids before me, so I never had that pressure. But that's one of the things, right? That's one of the things that out there. The social need, the esteem needs. Oh, look who I'm with. Ooh, look at this. This person's drop dead gorgeous. Look at that. How did this happen? Right? Oh, look at how proud you. And we know this is a thing because when people are in couple. How does anyone have friends? I'm not. You don't have to out yourself. But does anyone have any friends who uses social media that always point out the fact that they are dating somebody that's, ooh, look at this. Look at who I'm with. Anyone have that kind of friend? But that's the thing, right? There's that advertisers, that's a big one. So social needs and esteem needs is where advertisers hit the most. And esteem needs is like this idea that you are the perfect person or the perfect, situation, or you feel better because you're with somebody who's this level or whatever. And then finally, self-actualization, your dream spouse, your dream person. Anyone would like to share? You can put it in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud. Does anyone remember their first crush? And I mean like famous person crush, right? Famous person crush that you or someone who was a big crush of yours growing up. It's like for me growing up, it was Winona Ryder. Well, I don't think I've ever said that on camera. It was Winona Ryder. But that was it. I'm Gen X, and she was in all the movies and so forth. There was others too. I really liked the Michael Jackson video, Remember the Time, because the model Iman. I remember going, man, this is the best Michael Jackson song there is. I remember when Disney Plus came on, and for some reason I kept telling myself, I gotta watch the movie Willow. And then I watched it again, and I'm like, oh, the redhead. Oh, yeah, that's right. Right? Does anyone remember their celebrity crush when they were younger, growing up? Anybody? Want to name names? I named three, so I divulged that. Anybody would like to give an example? If you don't want to say it out loud, you can put it in the chat and I'll say it for you.
When I was growing up, I used to be in love with Halle Berry.
Halle Berry, that's right. Who isn't? But yes, Halle Berry. What do you mean growing up? She's okay. Anyways, Halle Berry. Yes, that's a lot of yeah. That's a. Anybody else who would like to share? No. Okay. But here's the thing. So this is why I asked this question because I ask this question all the time for my students. Do you ever find yourself gravitating towards somebody that looks like one of your dream crushes? Like, have you ever, like, maybe you favored somebody because they looked like someone you had a crush on when you were younger? Have you gravitated, or if you saw someone on the street that kind of looked like that person and you're like, whoa, whoa. Has anyone had that? You could give, you could say yes, you can unmute and say yes, or you can say it in the chat or give a thumbs up reaction. But it's a very common thing where you gravitate towards somebody either just by looking at them or maybe even wanting to talk to them because they remind you in the back of your head of someone you had a crush on growing up. Anyone have that? Nobody? Anyways, maybe you don't want to disclose that. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But here's the reason why I bring it up. It's a great understanding of how that motivation plays into your decision making. Because I'm never gonna run into. I think she lives in LA, but I'm never gonna run into Winona Ryder or Iman. I think she's in Great Britain because she married David Bowie. I'm a big Bowie fan, by the way. Or Joanna Watley, I think. Anyways, but it might be that the motivational desire, and you tend to flock. Same thing with the dream job. You might not be president in the United States someday, but you might want to run for office someday. Your local thing, or you might not have the dream car that you want, right? Fast little Italian number, but you get something similar that is the motivation. That's how it works, right? It motivates us to do these things, even if we don't reach it. And self-actualization is the highest goal. It's something that's desired, and it's something that they build on it in advertising. And as for you as public speakers, when you talk about this stuff, when you go after self-interest, you can keep that in mind when you're using your examples. Any questions on anything I covered? Maslow's hierarchy of needs really goes into that. We're going to touch upon the next chapter, but we're going to take a short break. Any questions? All right, I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, so we're back. We're going to go to the last slide, which is the persuasion speech for the first participation. There's two of them. The first participation is similar. So in the last video for last week's online content, since our regular meeting was speeches, I asked you to write a keyword outline. If you didn't do it, that's fine, whatever. But one of the things about this speech is the problem, solution, right? The problem, solution. And what I want you to do now, and this is what everyone's going to do for the online content, is I want you to think about this part, the solution, because we're going to finish the solution and start on the problem part today. So the solution part, I talked about, like, to be credible, it has to be plausible, it has to be, you take things into consideration, and it sounds like it's going to work. But one of the things that makes you credible is if you make it sound like you know who's going to do it. It's a term that that's called agency. When we think of agency, we think of some kind of government institution. But in this case, I mean, or we think of maybe a modeling agency or travel agency or something like that. But agency also goes to the idea of who will be in charge, agency over the subject as well. And so think about whatever problem that you're going to address and think about the solution and think about who can do your solution, right? So this actually is not that hard of a one. You just, for the people who are participating on the chat, for you too, it will actually just you talking about, and because we can go back and forth. But for the people who are doing it at home, the online only content folks, you need to write down the agency, like who would do it, and then how would they do it. So like it's like you would say it in like one quick sentence, like the federal government, and then period would pass a law that would do this. All right. Remember what I said in the last video, awareness does jack, doesn't do anything. So it has to be like passing a law, spending money, taking away money, stuff like that. And you got to think of the government. So like federal, like for the cartel speech, it would obviously be federal government because the federal government is the only one that can really do anything internationally like that with Mexico, right? That the serial killer speech. Serial killer speeches are usually the second speech, or they did before I banned it. But you could do a serial killer speech where you require anybody labeled as serial killer cannot be killed. They get automatic life in prison because we want to spend the rest of their life studying these people. That would be has to be either federal or state. Can't be local. A big state like California could do that because states have different laws when it comes to punishment. And then I don't think that there's any other banned speech I can use as an example, but sometimes there's local, like if you're talking schools and so forth. There's like, county board of education. So there's local level as well. So whatever your solution is, think about it right now. And I've been hoping you think about it as I'm talking. And all I want to hear from the folks that are here is what agency do you think it is? And we'll work it out together. For examples for the people who are not online. So who wants to go first out of you two?
I can go. I would say mine would be.
Well, hold on. Before you do that, let me ask
Oh,
you a question. What is your solution? What is your problem? Did you decide what problem you're going to do?
um, I'm thinking more support at. How would I put this? Well, why mental health support in school matters. So more.
Well, that's not a problem solution speech, but you want to tackle mental health, correct?
Yes, mental health.
So if I was going to do a problem solution speech on mental health, I would do one of the things is the reason why mental health is hard in the United States is it's expensive. And we used to have free mental health care with the asylums and so forth, and even free drug rehabs. This was before Reagan was governor, but we decided to privatize all that, and that's why the expenses have gone up so dramatically. So mental health, because we already have mental health support at the school, probably not the best, but
Okay.
it would you would essentially be saying more of the same, and that's not much of a speech. But you can do a mental health speech where you say mental health in the United States is free, right?
Okay.
Or you say mental health is free for low income individuals. It's kind of like a Medicaid. Is Medicaid the one for? I always get Medicaid and Medicare confused. Which one is for the poorer folks? Is that Medicaid?
I'm not sure which
But,
ones.
but
I
you know what
know it's
I'm doing.
Medicaid and Medicare, but I
Yeah.
don't know which.
So I would, if I were you, I would do, like you would say, like a Medicaid for low income mental health. So that would be a speech. Is that something you might be interested in doing?
Yes.
Okay. So your solution is free mental health care for low income folks. Who would do that? Which level of government?
So which level of government?
Federal, state, or local?
I
The
would say local
actually that
or
would be,
state.
yeah, it would be either state or federal.
State.
So
State. Okay.
you can have federal government do it, or you can have the state government take Medicare payments and Medicaid payments and increase it themselves for it. There's lots of different ways, but it would be federal or state. The best one would be federal. So you would just say the federal government passes a law to make mental health, create its own Medicaid for mental health. That would be it. That would be it. That's your agency right there.
Okay.
Okay, so you do whatever you want for research and so forth, because our speech is not this Thursday, but the next Thursday. But yeah, always have an agency, because you sound more credible that way. All right, that's it. Wow, that was. I know we went through stuff, but that actually helped not just yourself but others. What is your last name again?
Thompson.
I got you. I got you. All right. Do you want to do one? The other person in the class?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure just yet.
Well, what social we can help with your problem. We can help you find a speech right now. What thing out there would you like to have changed? Because that's the thing about the speech. It has to be something that changes something.
I mean, well, practically right now, since I'm in the cars, there's a law that's required for California for smog purposes. So anything that's 76 and below, you're not
That would
able.
I'm gonna stop you right
You're
there.
not
That
required to do a smog.
that would be a
They
two
recently
fine.
passed a bill.
I'm gonna stop you right there because that would be a too finite. There would be no research there. You know what I mean? It has to be like a large social impact kind of thing. If you're interested in cars, one of the speeches that students have looked at doing is they want
Right.
to reverse the cutoff date. I believe 2035, all cars sold in California need to be electric by 2035. So you can do a speech where you are like to extend that date to 2040 or 2045 or get rid of it altogether. Or you could do what I want to have happen and have an exemption for people for cars to be sold with a stick shift.
Oh
But
yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
so there's lots of, if you're in the cars, that's a possibility. Um, what else socially the things that you want change in this world?
Homelessness for sure.
Well, there you go. That's an easy speech. Um, there's lots of solution for homelessness. She has free mental health. By the way, mental health is something that you can bring up with homeless as well. Free drug rehab is a speech that you could possibly do. You can also do, I think, a very popular speech right now. Have you seen the little house villages yet?
Yes, the ones downtown.
Yeah, there are more and more of them, and those are great because not only is it providing housing for the homeless, but it gives them an address. I worked directly with the homeless back in my library days, and they need addresses to sign up for government services. So so
Right.
that's a possibility. Does any of those sound good to you?
Yeah, I like the homelessness one.
Which one? Free drug rehab or little houses? Because she already has
Little house, little
what?
houses,
Yeah,
little
and
houses.
so you would do a speech like the mental health one, you would do your big problem is all the mental health issues with teens right now. That's a huge problem, right? Because it seems like you're focused on kids and teens. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Joanna? Are you focused
Yeah,
on
yes, that's correct.
so that would be the overall problem. All the suicide rate, the addiction to social media, the addiction, by the way, to AI chatbots and all that stuff. So lots of things right there, drug, stuff like that. And then your connecting problem be lack of health, mental health, support would be your second problem right here, main point two. And then your solution would be free mental health. For you, for the homelessness, your main problem, your overall problem would be the homeless issue, right? All the and then focus more on the lack of housing part, the lack of housing, that they don't feel safe, that they have to worry about the elements and crime and they're susceptible to drugs and all this stuff. Main point two, they can't sign up for government services and they don't have a place, right? They don't have a shelter. They can't, but especially the government services. Little villages is a solution, right? So who would do that? Who would create the little villages? What government? What level of government?
Would that be federal?
Actually, it would. Yeah, it would, federal would work, but you could also. This is one of the only speeches that you can do all three. So,
Oh.
um, what's your other speaker who's doing the homeless? What's your first name again? I can see it in the chat, but I don't want to bring it up because I don't want it on camera. What's your first name again?
Salvador.
Salvador, I got you. All right. So Salvador. So you could do either of them. Which one sounds better, local, state, or federal?
Local.
Yeah, the LA County or LA City can use their money that they get for homelessness and create little villages to do that. So that's the speech right there. That's the agency. By the way, you know who did it? One of the little villages. You know who created one of them? Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
Yeah, he created one of the little villages himself.
That's no.
He created one for veterans only.
Wow.
And he I'm here for the veterans. And so yeah, he created his own, but yeah, he worked with local government. So yeah. By the way, a lot of the big problems we have in California, the biggest opposition is people who sue, like the bullet train, homeless shelters. Every time we try to do those things, people sue to stop it. That's why the bullet train costs so much, is all the lawsuits. All right, so that's it. That's the agency. So for those who are watching online, come up with your own. You get the gist. Thanks to these two students, you get the gist of the setup right here, where you get more credibility if you know who would do that. All right, like I said, pass laws, spend money. These are the things, but it sounds more credible when you have somebody who can actually do it. All right, let's move on. Let's yep, chapter 24, and then we'll be done. I will actually just go over the terms, and I'll save the rest of it for class on Thursday. I think we could do everything on Thursday. Credibility. There it is again, the most used term in this book, right? And the most used term, but this is super important. By the way, chapter 24 is about reasoning. Reasoning is one of the things that I think needs to be taught more in public education, by far. So credibility is an important part of reasoning, because if you're competent, trustworthy, and you have the right dynamism, you're going to be more credible and your reasoning is going to sound more likely, right? And so what it means by competent is that you know your stuff. I always say knowledgeable is when you know your stuff from books, you're well read. Competent is you're competent for the moment. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's capable for any student out there if they do the research. All right, if you do the research and you cite, according to New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal, you look competent in the moment. Trustworthiness, obviously, when you show up and you look trustworthy and so forth. And a lot of the times, it just sounding trustworthy. That's why the structure is so important. Because if you come up there and you give a speech and you're all over the place, you don't sound trustworthy. How many of you know somebody that you don't trust because their thoughts are all over they're all over the place? Anyone know anyone like that?
Yes.
Yes. See, that's why structure is so important. It helps with your trustworthiness. Dynaism is the um, energy you bring. And think about President Obama. He brings a low energy. Think about President Trump. He brings a high energy, right? When they speak. That's same thing. Remember, we talked about them and their voices being distinct. You like or dislike them, you have to admit that they cross over, and it's their energy that they bring. And they use different types of energy. But there's charisma, and charisma is a part of dynamism. It's the charming part. And to me, and I know Obama is a better speaker, but to me, the most charming president, and he still will always be my president, is Bill Clinton. I'll feel your pain. Right? When he talked like that, yeah, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. And he would talk to different people, American, working class, I feel your pain. Latinos, I feel your pain. African Americans, I feel your pain. And you're like, oh my God, he said me. But he had that charisma. He had that charm. Now that those things are not going to be on the test, but what will be on the test is these credibilities. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Initial, derived, terminal. They will be on the test. These are the credibilities you have in a speech. Now, before we get into the definitions, I'm going to ask you word association. What word pops in your head when I say the word initial? Anyway. Beginning, right? The start. And that's what initial credibility is. This is the credibility you have before the speech. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Initial credibility is the credibility you have before the speech. All right. And this is important because if you research, you're going to have better initial credibility. If you plan or practice your speech, you're going to have better initial credibility. Yes, there's people like me who have degrees, who when I speak, I can go, oh, look at me, I got these degrees. That's true. But anybody, if you do those things, like talk about research, plan, practice, you're going to have initial credibility. I'm going to skip one. What word pops in your head when you think of terminal? Terminal. Besides airport.
The end.
The end. The end. And that's what terminal credibility. This is credibility you have after your speech. Credibility, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, is the credibility you have after your speech. That's terminal credibility. I know I'm going to get dark here, but it's true. The best way to remember terminal credibility is when your speech is dead. It is tot. That's, by the way, that's how Germans say dead. Tot. The thing is, it's when your speech is dead, and it's the remembrance of your speech that is terminal credibility. So obviously, derived credibility is in between. This is the credibility you get that is derived from your speech, meaning this is the credibility you get while you're speaking. So if you're doing your speech correctly, if you're citing in your speech, if you're walking them through it with your transition, then you have a good structure. This is the credibility that builds to your terminal credibility. All right. Those are going to be on the test. There's evidence. We all know what evidence is, hard and soft evidence. This is stuff you bring. When it comes to credibility and reasoning, it's a very important part, especially for one of the terms. But this is stuff you bring to the table on your speech. Reasoning itself, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's so important. So important. I'm grabbing the book. I got my bag. I looked at my bag today. I gotta get a new bag. Both my bags, I gotta retire them. Well, they're not retired. I'm not gonna see. I sometimes retire things. I have a Foot Locker full of artifacts from my life that are retired. The Foot Locker, by the way, fun fact about the Foot Locker, was my grandfather's Foot Locker at Pearl Harbor. So the Foot Locker that's currently sitting in another part of my place was in Pearl Harbor on the time of the attack. All right, anyways, chapter 24. Oh, maybe I'll use my secret glasses, my reading glasses. Oh my gosh, that's so much easier now. Reasoning, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, is the process of drawing a conclusion from evidence. Is the process of drawing a conclusion from evidence. It's important to know evidence is not just physical evidence, it's hard and soft evidence. All right. But it is reasoning as a process of drawing conclusion from evidence. We have a problem in this country with faulty reasoning. We do. We're going to get to that more in the second half of this in class on Thursday. But yeah, we have a problem with faulty reasoning in this country, in this world too. There's two types, hint, hint, nudge, nudge on both of them. Inductive reasoning. You reach a general conclusion based on specific examples, facts, statistics, and opinions. This is the stuff that you can point to. If you like the crime shows, this is CSI. This is CSI and all that stuff, right? This is the evidence. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Keyword here is evidence. Inductive reasoning is the reasoning, it's when you reach a conclusion based on the evidence, the examples, the facts. This is like you can point to things type evidence. All right, inductive reasoning. And you reach a generalization. It's like a conclusion, but it's a generalization. You get the general gist. So if I'm a crime scene detective, and if I'm at a crime scene and I look at the thing right there and I can see that by a footprint in the mud, I can tell that the size of the guy's shoe. I can, because of how far down it is in the mud, I can guess the weight of the person, that it's a man's shoe, that it's a cheap brand. So this person is either thrifty or they don't have the money to buy those types of shoes, right? And I can also tell either if they're walking or running by that one footprint because I have this evidence in front of me. And this evidence, the depth, the size, the position, all that stuff, I can reach generalizations there, right? Deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is when you are, it's the opposite of inductive. You make a general statement of principle to reach a specific conclusion. I always say this is the reasoning of premises and scenarios. This is where you the reasoning in your head. The inductive reasoning is more the hard evidence stuff, the stats, the facts, stuff like that. This is the soft reasoning. Soft evidence where it's in your head, the premises and so forth. These are the people who figure it out in their heads, type stuff. They have evidence too. They can point to things, but they put things together, like that footprint, right? Instead of looking at the footprint, they go, okay, well, we know that this occurred at this time today. So out of the people in this person's life, these are the people that were upset with this person. This is the time that it occurred, who was available, who has an alibi. They have all these possibilities in their head and they put them together, and that's what the deductive reasoning is, right? There's this thing called syllogism that explains it. That's not going to be on the test. So deductive reasoning will be, but syllogism is not. It's the technical name for it. But what you need to know, anytime you use deductive reasoning, you're using major premises and minor premises to reach a conclusion. A major premise is something like, this is an example from your book. All gods are immortal. Big notion, right? Big notion, right? And then you have a smaller notion. Zeus is a god. Zeus is a god. That means the conclusion is what? What is the conclusion? Anybody?
Wait, what did you say at first? All gods were what?
Immortal. All gods are immortal. Major premise. Minor premise. Zeus is a god. That leads to the conclusion of what?
it go? Oh, all gods are moral.
Immortal.
Don't it go?
All gods are immortal. Zeus is immortal. That means something about Zeus. Zeus is what?
The god of lightning.
Oh no, it means he's immortal.
More.
Oh,
Yeah, see, all gods are immortal. Zeus is a god. That means Zeus is immortal. That's how it works. You're putting things together. It's kind of like here, I'm going to give you a physical example. It's kind of like this. I say Zeus is a god. This is the statement. I'm sorry. All gods are immortal. I say Zeus is a god. When you match them up, that means Zeus is immortal. It's that's how these premises work in your head. And the scenarios is you have all these ideas and they match up, and at one point you reach your conclusion. That's how it works. The last one, it will be on the test, but it will never be an answer. Casual reasoning is when you ethically put together a couple quick things and you realize that must be the reason why. It's the very easy way, basic way of reasoning. This is everyday reasoning. But you notice I say ethical because Thursday we're going to talk about unethical reasoning. Any questions on the terms? Any questions on the terms?
and that will be on the test. Casual reasoning.
The credibilities will be on the test, and so will the reasonings. So will the reasonings. They'll definitely be on the test. We have one more participation for today, and then we are done. Any other questions? No, we're good? All right, here we go. Here's the other question. So online content only on online content, people. We're gonna well, actually, before we do that, I need to talk about something, so I'm not gonna bring it up in class. We're gonna show you how reasoning works in the real world. So I'm gonna actually tell you, I'm not gonna ask you guys to figure it out. I'm gonna actually tell you guys what happened. So where I'm from, we had a local franchise. You guys know what a local franchise is? It's when it's there's a couple of them, but they're only in this one area. Anyone have an example of that in the LA area? Of one that's around different places, but it's only in LA.
Sam's Burgers.
You said Tam?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the Super Bowl. Remember
really?
when Dre did the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Yep.
He had a mock up of Tam, so that was in the Super Bowl. Just like it's not a local franchise, but the Bad Bunny one had a taco place that's not far from where I live. LA, man, in the Super Bowl twice for its food. But okay, so Tam's, Tommy.
Oh, you're talking about Teddy's Red Tacos.
The seafood taco place over here in Highland Park area.
Yeah.
My neighborhood. No, anyways. So Tam's, King Taco, that Japanese fast food place I always forget the name of. Tommy's. These are all local franchises. And so in Fresno, in the Central Valley, we had this thing called Mom's Old Fashioned Burgers. Mom's Old Fashioned Burger was a local franchise. There was a couple of them, different types. This was one local franchise that was still around. A lot of the ones that were created around the same time, they were gone. The orange thing was gone, and so forth. Mom's Old Fashioned Burger is still around, but it was all in low income areas, right? These are places that were not growing. In fact, economically, they were declining, and so forth. And they're not competition. No one's worried that Mom's Old Fashioned Burgers were going to blow up. While they used to be a franchise, they were owned by themselves. So no one was going to try to spread them out anyway. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, McDonald's in the late 90s and early 2000s, or the 2000s, decided we're going to put a McDonald's right across the street. Either opposite corner, caddy corner, or sometimes in the same shopping center. as the mom's old fashioned burgers. And sure enough, after a while, all the mom's old fashioned burgers were gone. Gone. Except for one. There's only one left. And if you ever want to know about the neighborhood I grew up in, it's that one. That's the one that that's the one that's still around. The one that I mean that place was great. The steak fries and the malts are amazing. Anyways, so but and the reason why is because McDonald's there was no corner for McDonald's to put a burger place there, or they would have. So the question is why? Why did they do that? And I've had asked students all the time. They'll say, "Oh, because of competition." Again, they're not competition, and so forth. We go back and forth, but it always comes down to this. And the article that they talked about this, McDonald's admitted it. The reason why McDonald's put a thing there is the mom's old fashioned burger indicated to them. They reasoned because that place was there, even though it was low income, declining that still indicated that that neighborhood can support a fast food restaurant. And so they put themselves there because they knew that there would be enough people to spend money at McDonald's. And sure enough, McDonald's won the day because McDonald's gets everything for cheaper. And so yeah, that's reasoning. They looked at the evidence and used inductive reasoning to figure that out, or they use deductive reasoning and they put together some things and they crossed and they said this is the situation. So that is reasoning for you, and that's where we're going to go with today's participation. We talked about solutions on Thursday. We're going to cover this more, but we're going back to the problem solution thing. So the last online content one, you had to do keyword outline. What I want you guys to do now is think about the problem that you're doing, and you guys have a little bit of advantage. So people at home need to do this. Think about the overall problem, the big problem that is that you want to resolve, right? Like the Mexican cartels for the cartel speech, and then think about a part of the problem, because the reasoning that we're doing, imagine it like this, right? You have this big old blob of a problem: homelessness, mental health, cartels, housing, abortion. You have all these big problems of it. What we're doing, that's the overall problem, main point one. What we're doing is taking a part of it out and we're solving for that part, because that's the best way to tackle these big problems. If you tackle the part, all right? So, so think about your two keywords for your problems: the big one, overall problem, and then the little one, what is that part of the problem, the connecting problem to your solution. I want you to go ahead and think about it. For those people who are doing it at home, you need to write one sentence each. So not just a keyword, but a sentence explaining the keyword. You would say something like, main point one, the cartels are creating all these problems in the United States. Main point two, the cartel lands are giving them the protection they need to do these crimes. Cool. That's an explanation. So think about it, and put that in the online. Again, reminder, try to put both your answers in one reply. It's easier for me, it's easier for you and your fellow students. Okay, which of you want to go first? I already gave you the answers, but let's see if you remember the answers. Who wants to go first? The overall problem and the connecting problem. The part. Anybody?
Yeah, I think I got it, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think that homelessness is a huge problem.
That's the big problem. That's the big problem. So you're talking the drug, the mental health, the lack of housing, all that stuff, lack of protection, all that stuff. What's the little problem? What's the connecting problem that your solution can tackle?
The little problem is just not enough little villages.
Well, in this case, they need shelters and they need addresses for government
Right.
services. So yeah, so that's the problem. They don't have a place to call home, right? They don't have a
Yes.
place to call home. If you were doing this issue and you were doing the money idea, so homelessness,
So,
Seattle did a pilot program where they just signed up. I don't know how many homeless they did, but for 1 year they gave a bunch of homeless people $1,000 a month. They had to go get the money, and they didn't ask them what they had no control of what they did with it. But every one of them they got it out for guaranteed for 1 year. And at the end of the year, yeah, they used it for drugs and everything, but every single homeless person was in a better shape before they started. So the overall problem would be homelessness, and the small problem here would be financial security, right? And then that's the see how that works. So yeah, you got it, you got it, you got it. Do you want to do the mental health one?
right.
And the underlying problem is lack of affordability with the mental health.
Yeah. So your overall problem, we covered this already, is, and you want to focus on all the mental health, because teens have, and as someone who works with teens directly, it's just not just, it's not just social pressure now, it's online pressure, it's all that stuff, and it's creating all these mental health issues. And so, yeah, so the underlying problem, the connecting problem is lack of mental health. There's psychologists that go to these schools and counselors, but they're overwhelmed. So free mental health for low income, that would do it. Or free mental health for teens or something like that. There you go. I got both of you down already for the work. Thanks for being examples for the rest of the students. You guys are great, and thank you for, because I know both of you have done this multiple times with me. Thank you for being part of the audience. You have helped so many folks with this. So thank you, and I will see you two on Thursday. Before I'm going to stop the recording right now. Let me stop. Hold on before you leave.